Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have computer and technology news. We have a ton of headlines. More specifically, it looks to be about 8 or 9 stories because we did not get to them yesterday. So we'll get to them today. And don't worry, we weeded out most of them. And this is just the creme de la creme, the perfect nougaty center of the tech news world. So everyone sit back, relax as we get into this. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, the live video feed, the video archives, podcasts, of course, articles, reviews, show notes, everything you need to know, ComputerAmerica.com. While you're there, give us a like, give us a follow on all social media, and as we said, and as we always say, join us if you'd like to talk to us live. You can, of course, do that over at twitch.tv/ComputerAmerica. Should be streaming most Monday through Fridays. And yeah, we have a lot of fun. Everyone, you should join us. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get things started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. So our first story is going to be, this one's going to be very relevant. This just happened in the past 24 hours, but yeah, check this out. It's Russians. They're at it again. And, well, the real question is, when are they not at it again? U.S. says Russian state hackers lurked in defense contractor networks for months. Yeah, this is pretty status quo, I think, for anyone who is an adversary of Russia. They're going to do stuff like this all the time. So, this is from Ars Technica, Dan Gooden, and they mentioned that hackers backed by the Russian government have breached the networks of multiple U.S. defense contractors in a sustained campaign that has revealed sensitive information about U.S. weapons development communications infrastructure, and that's what the federal government said on Wednesday. So, getting a little bit more into this, they mentioned that it began no later than January 2020 and continued through this month, according to a joint advisor, and everything from the CDC, Department of Defense, everyone was pretty much targeted and compromised. So they mentioned that during this 2-year period, these actors have maintained persistent access, which means that they got in, were able to establish some kind of back and forth with the server, and so they could extract information, and they've been doing that ever since. And they said that with multiple CDC networks, in some cases for at least 6 months. In instances when the actors have successfully obtained data, the FBI, NSA, and CISA have noted regular and recurring exfiltration of emails and data. For example, during a compromise in 2021, threat actors exfiltrated hundreds of documents related to company product, relationships with other countries, and internal personnel and legal matters. So just really anything and everything. Like there's really no wrong answer when it's all out in the open, or just whatever data you have access to. Hey, that's the data that you are going to want to keep. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on here, saying that some of the areas that they were looking to get into include weapon and missile development, vehicle and aircraft design, software development, data analytics, logistics, email communications, contract details, product development, tests and timelines, and funding and foreign partnerships. Just a little bit of everything. So with that being said, how they actually do it, the hackers use a variety of methods to breach their targets. And, we actually cut a story that this organization, or a different organization, had been running for about 5 years, and they did that strictly through email spear phishing attacks. and that's still active. Like, it's such a simple thing that you can't even defend against because it breaches the most vulnerable part of any security, and that is the human element. So with this particular one, it looks like it's something very similar. The methods includes harvesting network passwords through spear phishing, data breaches, cracking techniques, and exploitation of unpatched software vulnerabilities. After gaining a toehold in the targeted network, the actors escalate their system rights by mapping the Active Directory and connecting to domain controllers. From there, they're able to exfiltrate credentials for all the accounts and create new accounts. So there you go. We're going to go ahead and kind of end that there, but it goes on to urge all CDCs to investigate suspicious activity in their enterprise and cloud environments. And I guess that's why I think a lot of people may wonder, well, if they see that, hey, we're sending all of this data to gmail.ru, maybe we should look into that. Well, they're able to create tons of different accounts and tons of different email and things like that, and they're all from within the organization. So you can imagine if they can create accounts and send communication within the organization. Many large companies have, this email originated outside of our network. Be careful, don't click links, that kind of thing. But they're not included on internal emails, and they're able to do that. They're able to escalate their permissions more and more and more until they're able to not run the whole thing, but at least have access to most of it. And that seems to be the problem. So that's what the State Department is claiming, that Russia is doing this. And again, I think the bigger part of the story, obviously the hack itself over 2 years, that's definitely not good. But the bigger issue is that this is coming directly from the federal government. Like, that's as good of a source as you can get when it comes to these kinds of breaches. Because when it reaches that level that the U.S. government has to tell everyone else that, hey, Russia got us, it's been pretty bad. Now, they mentioned a solution to remove sensitive computers from the internet. And you're absolutely right, Rover. But there's another element to this where this wasn't just the U.S. government. Obviously, they're the one who put out the notice, and they were the one who were compromised. But beyond that, this is defense contractors. So people like Boeing, people, companies like Lockheed Martin. I'm not saying that those were the ones who were attacked. It really didn't say who it was. But these organizations don't have the strict requirements that, the government might put on them. And yeah, they're going to take security seriously to some extent, but clearly they're not foolproof. If they can be had by a simple spear phishing, hey, Martha, click this link, and they send it to Martha, and Martha clicks the link, and they've been got. The safest is of course what's called an air gap, where you literally have nothing connecting to the to these systems, and there is no wireless signal. Everything is air gapped. If you want access to it, you have to physically connect to the network. But yeah, defense contractors aren't going to do those super careful preparations like maybe the Pentagon would. So that's your first story of the day. +1 for Russia. Now, number 2, let's go ahead and talk about how about some foreign affairs. And we're going to cut this down a little. Actually, we're going to reopen that last one that we just closed. We were going to cut it, but I think it's worth talking about. This one happened just the other day, and, well, India. India has had this spat with China, and just recently, I think like last week, they banned an additional 54 apps from the App Store, or Chinese clones. A lot of them were simply clones of apps that were already banned, and a lot of the reason that they took action against these were for quote unquote quote unquote national security issues. There we go. It was you had like Snapchat clones, you have things that took facial recognition images, you had apps that would track location and payment details and things like that. All of them were, again, clones of apps that were already banned, so they should have been banned. One of the big ones was, of course, Garena, which is like a PUBG kind of clone for the Indian market that was made by China, that one got banned. So that's like 1 billion users right there that were really mad that that got banned. But they've taken it even a step further, where just the other day, this coming out of New Delhi, that the Income Tax Department has conducted searches and at multiple premises of Chinese telecom company Huawei in the country as part of a tax evasion investigation. There you go. And this isn't one of those, hey, we'd love to see your tax returns. It's more of like a, hey, we have the building surrounded, open up your doors, we're confiscating everything. It was one of those. So obviously Huawei claims that they are fully compliant with the law and nothing went wrong here. But clearly this is a crackdown that India has been going after Chinese interests and Chinese money and Chinese companies operating within India. And now you have, I don't know if this is a department that is keen on crime, like they know that these crimes are committed and now they're going in there and getting the evidence, or if they suspect something is happening and they're going in for the evidence to prove the crime that they want to believe is there. I'm not really sure, but it's, tension between India and China has been really, really high, to say the least. So the tax department last year conducted searches against Chinese mobile communication handset manufacturers Xiaomi and Oppo and their linked persons, and claimed to have detected alleged unaccounted income worth over 6,500 rupees due to violations of the Indian tax law and regulation. Which, with a large organization like that, I would not be surprised if a lot of people had a couple $100 discrepancy in their tax returns. But here we are. So with that being said, the Enforcement Directorate has conducted searches and frozen assets of Chinese-controlled companies and non-banking financial companies dishing out instant loans through mobile apps in India. So I guess that's also a pretty big no-no. They want to make sure that people are reporting the income that they're getting, especially if they take a loan from a foreign country. So with that being said, the stepped-up action against Chinese-backed companies or entities operating in India comes in the backdrop of the military standoff in eastern Ladakh. So tensions high. It's not just Russia and Ukraine. It might also be worth, paying attention to India and China as well. So with that, speaking of war and bad things, and, I get it. We're Computer America. We're going to have a slightly slanted view, more pro-Western, pro-America, that kind of thing, which, I do think America is pretty damn great. But, I feel like this one is fairly cut and dry. Not a lot of opposition to this one. And a big wag of the finger. Let's see. I have to have something for this. Yeah, that one's for Ericsson. If you don't know who Ericsson is, they are a technology company that operates out of Sweden. And a big wag to the finger, they're looking kind of sus with telecom giant Ericsson may have paid ISIS for access to Iraq. Fickle finger of fate. Exactly. Wag, wag, wag. They may have paid ISIS access to Iraq. And this is dating back to 2018, before, the transition of power, just in general, Islamic State, ISIS, terrorist organization, and its operations in Iraq. They mentioned, according to Bloomberg, the CEO said the telecoms giant has identified unusual expenses dating back to 2018. While the final recipient has yet to be identified, they admitted that they're seeing records of purchased transport routes through areas that were controlled by terrorist organizations, including ISIS. So clearly, if you want to establish a foothold and get goods through the country, you hand over big sums of money to the local terrorist organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, when this came out, their stock price dropped like 15%, and today it dropped like another 5 flat off the top. I mean, there's going to be a lot of repercussions to this, and I think that the stock market indicator just shows that that's a big shock, like just hearing that kind of news, and then the punishment that's going to happen for this is going to be a lot worse. So absolutely drinking on the job. You got to have your rum and coke. Now, at Coleman Missions comes after Ericsson issued a statement in which it said that it continues to invest significantly into an investigation regarding compliance concerns surrounding Iraq-based business. So, in that statement, Ericsson said that the unusual expense claims triggered an internal investigation in 2019. And here we are sitting in 2022. So, you can imagine very fast moving on this. Yep. So, regarding those purchase transport routes in particular, Ericsson said that they were used in connection with circumventing Iraqi customs. Yeah, this is looking really bad. So, yep. Ericsson invested significant time and resources to understand these matters. The investigation could not identify that any Ericsson employee was directly involved in financing terrorist organizations. So it's just the company at large. I mean, it's on their book, and the payments went out of their bank accounts, but they can't identify any one particular employee that kind of greenlit this. I guess they're all guilty of this. Yep. So Ericsson has been landing massive 5G contracts around the world in the past. Obviously, because Huawei has been banned in so many different countries, Ericsson has been the one to kind of step up to provide those 5G cell towers, antennas, radio emitters, whatever it has to be. And obviously, this isn't the first time that the telecoms giant has been caught in corruption. However, they mentioned that it was previously charged with violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act between 2000 and 2016 for bribing officials and falsifying records. So Ericsson also settled with the U.S. for $1.1 billion to leave it mostly free of criminal convictions, sanctions, and penalties. It seems like Ericsson knows how this industry works better than most, and unfortunately, sometimes they just kind of get caught doing what is likely an industry standard practice. But rule number 1: don't pay terrorist organizations to do business in countries. Whoop. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. That's very bad. Now, there you go. Story number 3. Story number 4. How about this? And this story caught my eye because obviously it's kind of one of the final nails in the coffin for a story that we've been, talking about for a while now. And that has to do with the total ban in the EU of the Pegasus Spyware. Pegasus Spyware from the NSO group in Israel that was sold to dictatorial regimes that were used to oppress dissidents, journalists, and just people who spoke out against the current regime. The EU is saying, hey, we don't want Pegasus anywhere within our country, either for law enforcement, for legal means, for illegal means. Nothing Pegasus shall ever grace our systems. Now, this seems like a lot of grandstanding, and yet at the same time it doesn't. So let me explain, and we're going to put the article up in the show notes. You can check that out there. But by and large, why I feel this is grandstanding and still needed at some level, first off, is what good is your super secret hacking software toolkit if it's been completely published, if everyone knows it exists, how it works, what happens when you use it? What good is the very secretive weapon that you're using if everyone knows about it? So to say that, hey, total ban, Pegasus Spyware, no one's allowed to use this, they shouldn't really care about banning Pegasus 1.0. They need to care about banning Pegasus 2.0 that will not be called Pegasus and will not be banned by this particular action. Now, the second part, where I think it is a little necessary, unfortunately, has to do with the fact that, well, how do I put this? Old vulnerabilities are some of the worst. Like we saw with some of the earlier stories that we did this segment, that the most effective methods for getting into a network are simply saying, hey Ben, here's this thing you wanted, check this out. Or hey Ben, here's a puppy and a kitten wrestling, click this link. And next thing you know, click, 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 a couple of dumb decisions later, and your system, your network is completely compromised. It doesn't take much to get people to click on a link nowadays. So what I'm saying is that everyone knows what to look out for when it comes to Pegasus. But just because you know what to look out for doesn't mean everyone is going to security update, doesn't mean everyone's going to update every patch Tuesday, doesn't mean that everyone is going to be completely on the ball when it comes to protecting their systems and their networks from this. So yes, it is necessary. It's sadly necessary, but at the same time, if this thing was a 10 out of 10 vulnerability style, threat, it has since been degraded to a 2 out of 10 because everyone knows about it, but it's still fairly effective. So there you go. They don't really need to ban that. I think they need to ban law enforcement from using malware in their investigations. Personally, that just seems a little scummy, but there you go. Almost like the whole Stingray operation that happened here in the United States, and how law enforcement were allowed to use stingrays without court order. Very suspicious. So there you go. Yep, let's go ahead and don't want to touch too much on this because it's just frankly not very fun to talk about, but it is worth mentioning. California's strict child data bill would limit big tech data collection. So think about this. Kids use the internet. It's just a thing. And much like a large dragnet going through the ocean and collecting large swaths of fish and other material, sometimes you get the tuna that you're looking for, and sometimes you pull up a protected species. And in this case, this dragnet is everyone's information on the internet. And the protected species that sometimes get caught up in the net and, also harvested are kids, babies even in some respects. Now, the California Age Appropriate Design Code bill would require many of the biggest tech firms in the world, such as Meta, Google, YouTube, Facebook, obviously all of these, to limit the amount of data that they collect on young users and location tracking of children in the state. And obviously what happens in California, for those who don't know, California is a massive economy. If you don't comply by California's rules, they will kick you out of California, and that is a death sentence. California is like the 5th largest economy in the world. If California was its own country, it's the 5th largest in the world. You can't afford to not operate within California. So whatever they pass means that other states in the country will soon follow suit. And, just companies have to obey what California says. Now, this as bipartisan support comes as U.S. lawmakers are increasingly voicing concerns about child safeguarding online and urging rules to better protect the privacy, safety, and mental health of children. Now, there's obviously a lot to go with this. What form this actually takes is, expect less push notifications and less, hey, pay attention to me kind of style notifications in the near future. So they mentioned that they described the UK code, and so this happened in the UK with everything that happened there as kind of as the concept for what this was. Now, what this actually means is that let's see. So last summer, in the months before the UK code came into effect, YouTube said it would turn off default autoplay on videos and activate take a break and bedtime reminders for under 18s. Meanwhile, Instagram introduced new features preventing adults from messaging people under 18 who do not follow them, among other changes. TikTok said it would no longer send push notifications to younger users later in the evening. So little things like that really grab kids' attention and say, look at this, consume this, do this, collect, and obviously any kind of data that collects on these kids cannot be used for advertising purposes and really shouldn't even be stored whatsoever. Like, I feel like the conversation has to start with username, age, and if that age is like under 13 especially, but if that age is under like 15 or 16, stop right there, collect no further data. That should be it, really. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap that up there, but just know there are future regulatory changes coming that should affect everyone, not just kids. That's going to affect everyone. And honestly, I'm loving how much Google, we have a story here, actually right here next, that they're making privacy changes as well. So a couple of weeks ago, you had Apple change what apps can collect information on iOS. And you saw famously that Facebook took a huge hit to their stock because they couldn't collect data unfettered anymore. Well, Google's looking to do the same because they have to follow suit, because clearly this is the way the industry is going. More privacy, less is known about you, but they still want to advertise to you. So how do you balance those two? And Google's answer to this as well is moves to make Android apps more private. So there you go. They mentioned that its so-called Privacy Sandbox project aims to curb the amount of user data that advertisers can gather. Rival Apple now forces app developers to ask permission from users from tracking them, and the news will be a blow to firms like Meta, which rely on putting their code on apps to track consumer behavior. Really, I'm hoping, truly, in my heart of hearts, I'm hoping that the current landscape of collect all the data forever on everyone, make super detailed profiles, and we know more about you than you do, I'm hoping those days are coming to an end. Yes, that means that it won't know, advertising won't know exactly what shoe size you are and what patterns you like, and, it won't have that super high definition personalized advertising, but by and large, it should still be a positive experience for the end user, not as targeted, but still targeted in some manner. And they don't know it, they don't have to know more about you than your own family does. That whole thing. So they mentioned that third-party cookies, which use people's browsing history, will be phased out of Google Chrome by 2023. In a blog, Google said it's now extending what it calls its Privacy Sandbox to Android apps and working on solutions that will limit sharing user data and operate without cross-app identifiers, including advertising ID. There you go. So, the tech giant did not detail how it plans to do this, but Apple decided obviously what happened then, and Apple suggests that US users are choosing to opt out of tracking 96% of the time. Really, that was always the benefit, was super detailed advertising so that you get served ads that you would appreciate, that's the sales proposition for the advertisers, that's the end proposition for the end user. And of course, you get better click-through rate and you make more money off of your users. It's great for advertisers. It's supposed to be great for users, but that kind of thing. But if it was really great, then why are 96% of people turning off tracking? Clearly, at some point, there was a breakdown that the end benefit, the total benefit for users, the end user, it really went away in favor of, let's just face it, greed. They were greedy. They could make more money off of every visitor, and they could get you to buy stuff a lot better. So, yeah. Who knows? So they mentioned that its successor, Topics, was announced recently and aims instead to group users on a number of categories, including like fitness or travel or cooking or tech or whatever it may be. The average app includes at least 6 third-party trackers that are solely to collect and share online data, according to a commission by Apple. And any one data broker is estimated to have data on up to 700 million customers. There you go. So I'm hoping the end is near for data collection, like rampant data collection, but we'll have to wait and see what the next iteration of all this looks like. So, okay, let's do this. Last story, and then we'll do some fun stories. But speaking of data collection, it flows just too nicely. Clearview AI. Now, I want to preface this story by saying this article feels half press release, half dystopian future. So take what they're saying with a grain of salt, because I think they're trying to, they're trying to get people to buy into their product, because they're looking for partners, they're looking for people that will give them money, they're looking for investors, they're looking for money in some regards. So some of their claims are going to be huge, but I also believe that in a lot of ways they can back up what they're selling. So Clearview AI, if you haven't heard about them, they now claim to collect 100 billion photos, supposedly enough to ensure that almost every human will be in its database. Now, there's clearly that island off of Southeast Asia that puts an arrow through any person that's not indigenous and tries to come to the island. They probably won't be in the data set, but everyone else will likely be pretty close. Now, the quote: Clearview AI is telling investors it is on track to have 100 billion facial photos in its database within a year. And of course, there are an estimated 7.9, almost 8 billion people on the planet. So, yeah, that's a lot of people. The December presentation was part of an effort to obtain new funding for investors. So 100 billion images is more of a goal than a firm plan, though they have already claimed they have they've already grown from 3 to 10 billion, so they have 10 billion, and they're claiming that they can do 1.5 billion images a month. So I don't know how they're going to get to that by that, but we'll definitely see. Now, with $50 million from investors, the company said it could bulk up its data collection powers to 100 billion photos, build new products, expand its international sales team, and pay toward lobbying government policymakers to, quote, develop favorable regulation, end quote. It's, it's pretty bad. And so with that, again, I think a lot of this is sales pitch, but I also believe they are one of the largest treasure troves of selfies. Now, they collect photos, and how do they get the photos? That's the big question. The answer is Facebook, Google, Twitter, and YouTube have demanded the company stop taking photos from their sites and delete any that were previously taken. Clearview has argued its data collection is protected by the First Amendment. So they're essentially scraping all of Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, whatever. And really, like, it's not that much more complicated. It really does. Just go to, and I'm going to do this here. I'm just going to go here to the internet and, just go to Google, type in selfie. Hopefully there's nothing here that gets me banned. And, look, hey, here's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of photos. Like, they clearly just type into Google selfie, take all these photos and run them through an algorithm. And then they'll go and do other keywords and just take all those photos. Like, they're saying that is completely legal because it's a simple, search. Who knows? But yeah, they do that to Facebook as well. They do it to YouTube with all the videos. It's not hard to do this. And they just happen to be one of the biggest players when it comes time to do this. And real quick, Rover pulled up a lawsuit that, they've faced tons of legal action, and they will continue to face a ton of legal action. So, This lawsuit that was filed in the state of Illinois in 2020 for violating the Illinois Biometric Privacy Act. The results of the lawsuit contributed to the company's decision to stop selling its product to private U.S. companies, which is actually, they cover that in the article as well. Right now, their only customers are government officials. Hey, so you can only sell it to, they say, quote, Clearview AI currently offers its solution to only one category of customer, government agencies and their agents. It limits the use of its system to agencies engaged in lawful investigative processes directed at criminal conduct or at preventing specific, substantial, and imminent threats to people's lives or physical safety. End quote. Now, when you think about that, that sounds super similar to another product out there. Can you guess which one? Correct. The answer was Pegasus Spyware. They claimed on their sites that they only deal with government agencies and law enforcement groups and organizations that were there to prevent harm and, solve cases. Now, we now know that there was no such oversight. They collected paycheck after paycheck for anyone that would buy their software from them. And when it came down to it, they stepped back and said, well, we don't monitor who uses our services. We don't, double check that the U.S. government is using the software in the way that we said they need to use it. That kind of thing. It sounds very similar to Pegasus software, and, it's just not a good look. So with that being said, a Vice report yesterday quoted the CEO as saying that Airbnb, Lyft, and Uber have expressed interest in using Clearview facial recognition for the purposes of consent-based identity verification, since there are a lot of issues with crimes that happen on their platforms. However, they said that there are no current plans to work with those companies, and all three companies told Vice that they have no plans to use Clearview. But if Clearview happens to run one of those, happens to be as good as they claim, it's just a matter of time before these companies are just drooling to get this incorporated into, again, you can imagine Airbnb, Lyft, and Uber. Super important. By the way, Clearview states that their technology is not for public consumption and meant for law enforcement, but their marketing material encourages users to run wild with their use, suggesting searching for family and friends as well as celebrities. As in just say, hey, look how good we are. There you go. Yep, truly dystopian, but again, also a sales pitch. So take it with a grain of salt. A mighty small grain of salt. Let's just say that. Okay, now that's about all the tech headlines. I'm sure that there's some stuff there we didn't cover, but I think that's a pretty good overview of what's been happening in the past day or two. Now, let's get to some silly headlines. And how about this? Okay, you know what would be a very good opener for this? Check this out. Some of these stories are going to make you think twice about the reality that you live in, how this works, what's happening, where's it all go? No one really knows. But I promise you, these stories are all true, and we probably will never get to the bottom of them. So let's go ahead and get started with the weird part of the news. Check this out. This one from Ben Huber over at UPI. And if you happen to see a large cabin, well, an entire cabin was reported stolen in Michigan. This was just yesterday, so hot off the presses. They say that Michigan State Police investigators are seeking help from the public for a stolen piece of property. And this one just happens to be a 12-foot by 28-foot cabin originally located in Cold Springs Township. There you go. They said that the owner of the cabin recently reported it was missing, presumably stolen, and the cabin is believed that to have been taken sometime between November 18th and December 16th. So, ladies and gentlemen, if between the days of mid-November and mid-December, if someone if maybe your neighbor suddenly got a very nice 12-foot by 28-foot cabin, maybe call law enforcement. It might be this one. That was a trailer heist? Yep, exactly. And just looking at it, it does look like almost like a mobile home-esque situation. And I'm sure that they did just load it up and take it away because they knew they were not there for, not there for the winter. But still, who the heck does that? Who steals an entire home? Like, who steals an entire trailer? It's just insane. You think this thing that is hundreds of square feet is safe, just putting it down, but I guess nothing is, sacred. Okay, that was story number 1. Story number 2, yet again, another lost situation. Are you missing an emu? Well, here's a very, very grainy photo. And the Franklin County Animal Shelter in Virginia said animal control officers are searching for an emu that has been seen loose in the area for at least 2 weeks. And animal control, they've been looking for it. The animal shelter posted a grainy photo to Facebook showing the emu is spotted by a witness. And shelter officials said reported sightings indicate the large flightless bird has been loose for 2 weeks and possibly longer. How do you lose an emu and just be like, oh, he'll come back eventually, whatever, in the wilds of Virginia? Pretty crazy. So, unfortunately, we don't know the name of the emu. Very good on guessing Elmo. I doubt that it's Elmo, but Elmo the emu. Cindy Lamb, of all people. Very funny that Cindy Lamb would actually work for the Franklin County Animal Shelter. Said animal control officers are searching for the emu this week in areas where sightings have been reported. Lamb said officials do not know where the loose emu escaped from, as no owners have come forward and reported an Australian bird missing. Ladies and gentlemen, just a little side note. If you happen to see an emu, they can be very territorial, very confrontational, and they can kick like no one's business. So be careful, don't approach it, but please try to get a better picture of it, because that picture sucks. And I would love a better picture of an emu loose in Virginia. That sounds great. So 2 losses and now a found. Our final story, and then we're going to go ahead and call it a day, is actually an exotic. I watch a lot of animal documentaries. I love exotic animals and stuff like that. Would never own one, just to be clear. But I've never even heard of this thing. So, coatimundi, I think. Or coatimundi? I don't know. An exotic coatimundi found wandering loose in North Carolina. Hey, our neck of the woods. This one, authorities in North Carolina said an exotic animal was captured while wandering in Raleigh. A white-nosed coatimundi. The Raleigh Police Department said that a South American animal, often known as a coati, was found wandering Tuesday night in a neighborhood near the Enloe High School. They have long, and there's a picture there, of course, much better than the grainy emu one. It has long snouts like anteaters, but are mostly related to raccoons, so I'm sure it was right at home. The coati was taken to an exotic veterinarian, where it was later reunited with its owner. Raleigh currently allows for exotic pets to be kept, but they're already considering not letting that happen after a venomous zebra cobra. Not a venomous zebra, a venomous zebra cobra escaped from its owner in the city in the summer of 2021. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, man, what a weird day for wild animals. So, and of course, good luck finding that cabin. Who knows where that thing will eventually pop up. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the program. I want to redirect you once again to computeramerica.com. That's where you will find everything, including the show notes for today. And in the meantime, twitch.tv/ComputerAmerica. Obviously, at Computer America on all social medias. Get in touch with us. Love to hear from you. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.